Are you in love again? Let's hope so. It is Metronomy. Everything Goes My Way, the new single coming out next week, and Metronomy will be next week's Artists in Residence. Thanks very much to Marianne Hobbs. I'm John Kennedy. We are XFM, and it is now Xposure. And tonight I have a co-host, Phil Selway. Welcome to XFM.
Hi, John.
How are you?
I'm really well, thank you very much.
Thanks so much for coming in.
My pleasure.
And here's something by the band you're in. I don't know whether you're aware, but Radiohead, you know them?
I've heard talk of them in the past, yeah.
They're rather good. It is Little by Little, the Caribou remix. Now part of the double CD set, which has just come out this week. Radiohead, TKOLRMX. I can't get it right. The King of Limbs remix, basically. And Phil Selway from Radiohead is my co-host tonight. Where do you stand, Phil, on talking over music as a DJ? Is it something that you approve of as an artist who creates music and then people like me talk all over it? Do you approve or disapprove?
Well, no, I think it's primarily made for dedications over the top, isn't it?
Yeah, you normally should have an instrumental opening so people can talk right up to the vocal, and then have an instrumental out to any song. I mean, that's just common sense, isn't it?
Well, I can say it's second nature to you, though.
Maybe. No, it is funny, though, because sometimes I do it, and sometimes that's fine, and sometimes I do it and think, oh, no. I've already talked over a really good bit, and I blush while I'm sitting here on my own. And you'll be able to see my blushes tonight, Phil.
I can feel the glow from here, John.
Thanks so much for coming in. The new album, the remix album, is out this week. You were out schmoozing and celebrating its launch last night, I do believe.
Absolutely. We were down at the Boiler Room, and Tom did a set, but also Jamie XX and Caribou and Ilham Sphere and Lone. They're all there doing sets as well. So we all crammed into a very small room with a very loud system, and it was a great evening. Really.
So we're all five of the band at the Boiler Room? Were you all celebrating the launch of the album?
Oh, it was a very rare occasion, and we were all there.
Wow. You're not even all there when you record the records.
Oh, we are, very much.
So I like it. So there were probably about 10 people in this tiny DJ booth. Trying to go squeeze past each other to get out of there, to go to the loo or something. Excuse me, I need to go. I got to go. I got to get out now.
So nobody would hear you because it was so loud.
Yeah, amazing. A good night, though.
It was fantastic, actually. Yeah, and I feel that I've raised my credentials somewhat by everybody that I met last night.
You're part of the cool crowd, part of the gang.
Well, yeah. Well, I was in the same room anyway.
Excellent. But you're here tonight because to share that experience, to talk about the remix album. But you've also brought in your guitar, and you're going to perform for us as well, which is exciting.
Yep, definitely.
Good. And you've brought in some records.
I have, yeah.
So what are you hoping to kind of squeeze in between now and when?
Well, it's quite a variety on here. Hopefully, if you'll let me, other lives.
Okay, excellent.
And loads of things from John Martin through to Cashier Number 9. Okay, and I'm working on you. I think I might actually get an XFM first here this evening and get some Dolly Parton, maybe.
Wow. Okay. I'm open to persuasion on that, I must admit. But maybe Cashier Number 9 first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Which track?
Belfast's finest. It's a track called Oh Pity off their album at the moment called To the Death of Fun.
And this is it. Cashier Number 9. Xposure XFM with Mode Selector, brought in tonight by Phil Selway, featuring Busman. That is Pretentious Friends from the new album, which has just come out. Sounding amazing. And I was just asking you for clarification, Busman versus bus driver. What do you know about Busman? Apart from he hangs out with Mode Selector.
And lives in LA. That's about as much as I know.
That's good enough for me.
Fantastic track, though.
Yeah, no, it sounds amazing. And Mode Selector, big favourites of Radiohead's and yours, and big friends with Tom.
Yes, and they on on Monkey Town, the record, I mean, Tom's features on 2 tracks on there, which sound great. But yes, we've done shows with Mode Selector, and we in fact we even did one in Berlin in their hometown, which was amazing. So yeah, I mean, it's great, a great record, and didn't see them last night though.
No. They weren't hanging out.
No.
They were just in Britain. They did a show in London at the weekend, I think Friday night, something like that. But I think they literally flew in and flew back out, you know, in that kind of time-honoured tradition, which is a bit of a shame because I was hoping to get them on the show. But I have Phil Selway instead. So
yeah, playing Mode Selector.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost there, isn't it? It's the same thing.
And before that, you chose Cashier Number 9, sounding great. Have you got to see them live at all?
No, I haven't. I actually, because my record came out in Bella Union, so they're label mates, but it wasn't nepotism, I have to point out, that made that choice. It was just, you know, heard by word of mouth of recommendations on that one. And, yeah, hopefully, I think I might be able to get to see them in Oxford next month, so I look forward to that.
Do you go out gigging in Oxford much? I mean, do you get time for that, to go and see bands?
More so recently, actually. I went to see other lives recently, actually, in Oxford, at a place called Jericho Tavern, which is where we started out, really.
Your first ever gig was at the Jericho, wasn't it? Or was that?
Yeah, it was, and that's kind of where we got signed at the Jericho. And it's very bizarre going up there now, because you walk in and there's this huge mural of us there. And you kind of just turn around and think, oh my God, that's me up on the wall. That's not right.
That is a bit strange.
It's a lovely place to see a band, though, and it was great to seeing other lives there.
Yeah, well, we'll hear more about that because you've brought them in as well, and we're going to play some other lives. But right now I'm going to introduce you to something. I'm going to play tonight's Xposure Hot One, which comes from a guy called Wise Blood. Maybe I'll play it and then we'll find out a bit more about him right now. But if you want to get in touch, if you've got any questions for Phil, 83936 is the text number, john.kennedy@xfm.co.uk is the email address, and @XFM is the Twitter address. It is tonight's Xposure Hot One on XFM, Wise Blood, and that track is called Darling You're Sweet. It's from the These Wings EP, which is available digitally as of now, getting a physical release through the Loose Lips label on the 21st of November, and Wise Blood coming over around that time as well. It's just one guy, Chris Laufman from Pittsburgh. What do you reckon, Phil? Getting a thumbs up?
Yes, 2 thumbs up.
A double thumbs up.
Yeah.
Excellent. It's always tricky. I mean, being played music for the first time, kind of knowing exactly what to think of it. But it's an intriguing
I was coming on to Round Table, actually.
Excellent. But luckily, a positive reaction. That's always a good thing. But on the way in just a moment, I've got the first of the session tracks from tonight's One Night Stand, Escapists, and then Phil himself will be picking up his guitar to play us some songs as well. Looking forward to that. So more from Phil and Escapists on the way next. It is Escapists, tonight's One Night Stand, in session on Xposure XFM, recorded here in the session studio of XFM on the 25th of August. That is the session version of Post Gospel Blues, the single, which is out this week digitally, sounding fantastic, I think. And they were in on the show last week doing acoustic versions of some of their songs, which is something which is going to happen in a few minutes' time with Phil Selway, who is my guest tonight, and also co-hosting the show, choosing the music, yeah, there's some questions, Phil. Do you want to answer some questions people have sent in?
Yes, please.
Somebody has texted in. They haven't put their name. Put your name next time, please. Did you enjoy making The King of Limbs more than other albums because of the wider use of percussion? And are you back in the studio at all?
Each record has had its challenges, and we certainly make sure that the challenges are there. If I think with King of Limbs, the real challenge has actually been taking it out of the studio and trying to figure out how to play it live. So actually tonight I'm just 1/6 of Radiohead, because we do have another drummer at the moment, so we could actually realise what was going on the record. So it was that's been amazing, just seeing this whole extra kind of dimension to what we do, seeing that come to life. So yes, been playing with Clive Deemer, who plays for Portishead, and it's worked really well. We both turned up on the same day with the same drum kit, quite unbeknownst to both of us. We've both got shaven heads, and
so if people squint, they can't tell one from the other.
Absolutely, yeah. It's double vision in Radiohead now. And there was another part of that question as well, which I've forgotten.
I can go back to it. Are you back in the studio at all?
Not at the moment, but we won't rule it out.
Yeah. And another question from Italo, who's emailed saying, how extensive will the 2012 Radiohead tour be? Are you coming back to South America?
Well, that's jumping the gun a little bit there, isn't it?
Is there a 2012 Radiohead tour?
Well, we want to get out and do some more shows. We're talking about it at the moment.
Right.
So,
still in the talking stage. How does it work? Do you all have to convene together, have a chat? Do you want to do some more gigs? Are we going to do some? And then that goes to the next stage.
Sadly, the way it works is that we get together to arrange getting together to discuss this a bit more. And that turns into an arrangement to get together again. And but I think we're moving along on that one now.
And in terms of territories, I mean, are you coming back to South America? The problem with for big bands such as Radiohead is that you're in demand across the globe. So everybody wants you to play their country, don't they? How do you? I mean, and obviously you rotate these things to a certain extent. Do you ever say, actually, what we want to do? We want to go somewhere sunny where it's nice, and we want to go there. And do those considerations come into it at all?
Comfort, good weather, good food. No, never. This is Radiohead we're talking about here.
Excellent. But Phil Selway, you are now the sixth member.
Yeah.
A sixth member of Radiohead.
Sliding down that hierarchy.
You're also a co-host tonight, and you're also a solo artist in your own right. And whereas some people might assume the drummer is going to turn into a DJ, or they're going to do some crazy experimental drum workshop type music, but you chose to kind of turn to guitar and vocals, really, and you released an album last year. New EP came out in the summer, Running Blind. When did you record the EP? Was that around the same time as the album, or was this stuff?
No. The material that became the EP was stuff that was floating around when I was doing Familial, but it didn't fit on there. And then when I was out playing live last year with a different group of musicians from the ones who played on the record, some of the songs took on a different life there, and I just wanted to capture that. So we recorded them at the beginning of this year, and it's they work for me. They gel together on the EP in a very, very surprising way for me, anyway.
Yeah, and so this is in effect the EP of the touring band. In a way,
I suppose it is. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I guess which would have been more of a band kind of feel than when you were recording the album.
Well, that had a band feel as well, though,
right, okay.
to it, because they were all, when I was doing the record, they were all musicians that I was involved along with Ed from Radiohead. We both went down to New Zealand for a project that Neil Finn put together called Seven Worlds Collide. And that's where I met Lisa Germano and Glenn and Pat from Wilco and Sebastian Steinberg. And it kind of fell in quite naturally together around my material, that group of musicians. And so there was a sense of a band there. And then they came over to our studio, Radiohead studio, and we had a fortnight together. So there was that real sense of that kind of collaborative effort that you get off a band.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was an American band, and the band on the EP is very much an English band.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, I'm going to play the title track of the EP, and while I'm doing that, you're going to pick up your guitar and get ready to play. So, Phil Selway performing live on Xposure XFM in just a minute, but before that, here's the title track of the EP, which came out in August. This is Running Blind.
It
That is Phil Selway with Running Blind from the Running Blind EP, out now on Bella Union Records. And Phil is my co-host tonight and also my live performance guest. He's got his guitar in his lap now. Phil, when you were recording the EP and the album, when you're a drummer, did you get other people to do the drumming or did you have a big say in that?
Actually, when I was writing the songs, I didn't hear drum parts for them myself, so it was really great actually handing that over to somebody else. I mean, on the record, it's Glenn Cochie, Welco's drummer.
Wow.
He's an amazing drummer, just so versatile. And, you know, all the kind of percussive textures that he brought, I just think, oh, I'd never come up with that. So that was fascinating watching that. And it's almost, you know, you have two heads. When I've got my drummer head on, I can't really get into the songwriting, and it's converse as well, you know. So it was just really nice just to be able to not think about that side of things actually. So and also, you know, actually watching somebody like Glenn play was just incredible. I sat there with my notebook getting tips. And then when we play live, we're working with Alex Thomas, again, who's a fantastic drummer, and seeing him take a different take on stuff. So it goes for all these different lives.
Yeah, no, that's great. And is that saw or theremin?
That is a saw.
Right.
Played by Kath Mann. Played rather brilliantly, I think.
Yeah, sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But you don't have the saw or any of these drummers with you tonight. It's just you and the guitar.
Yeah.
And you're going to play a few songs for us while you're here. What's the first one you're going to play?
This one's off the Running Blind EP as well. It's called What Goes Around.
Okay, when you're ready. Phil Selway performing live on Xposure, XFM.
Sleep tight.
Lovely. Phil Selway performing live on Xposure XFM with What Goes Around, and you can find a completely different version of that on the Running Blind EP, which is out now on Bella Union. And are there more recordings, Phil, on the way, do you think, from Phil Selway Solo Productions? I hope so.
Yeah, me too as well. I've materials. I've just got to sit down and write some words again now.
and now that you've kind of established this, I mean, is there a thread to what you do as Phil Selway solo performer? You know how kind of Radiohead have gone through various different styles and kind of reinventions of yourselves, and felt the need to do that. Do you think you'll concentrate on kind of just exploring these songs in the way that you do at the moment, or what? You know?
Do you know what? I wouldn't have thought so, actually. I mean, these songs came out of a very particular point in my life, and they were written very much under the radar. And it was me finding my way through songwriting and learning how to sing. And so it was just me hidden away in my bedroom doing it. And so I think the way that I recorded it was very intimate. It was very much like pillow talk, really. And so that was very appropriate to these songs. And also, I mean, they're very, you know, lyrically, it's, it's very up close. So it just felt like the appropriate thing to do to these. But I've done it.
Yeah. So you'll move on and do something.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, interesting, excellent. Right, well, I think we should have another selection of yours now. Other lives I've got lined up, who you went to see at the Jericho Tavern.
That's right, in Oxford, yeah.
How were they? I haven't seen them play. I'm hoping that they're going to come in and do some kind of acoustic session, but I mean, on record it's quite...
they were amazing, actually. Especially, I mean, seeing them somewhere like the Jericho Tavern, which is small, but they sounded incredible. And all those complexities that you hear on the record, it's all there crystal clear, and just a lot of definition in there. But actually, after the show, we managed to persuade them to show us the stage setup, and it's incredible what they did. They just fit so much into such a small space, but just use it so well. And it's just, I was just really, really impressed with what they do. They're great.
How many people in the band?
There were. Now you're asking, aren't you?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
This is the starter for 10. I think it's a five piece.
Right.
I'm just trying to remember now.
Yeah. No, well, I'm just
on the spot there.
No, I didn't mean to put you on the spot in that way. I'm just trying to think ahead because I think it might even be next week. They're going to come in and do something not similar to what you're doing, but they're going to break it down and simplify it. Will they be able to? Do you think? I'm not sure. I've been assured.
They look the business, so I think they will do.
Excellent. It is Other Lives on Xposure XFM, brought in tonight by Phil Selway of Radiohead, who is my co-host and my live studio guest. He's playing some songs for us. He's performed one already, Running Blind. No, he performed What Goes Around, didn't he, Phil? No. I played Running Blind, and there's more to come on the way.
That was one I made earlier, actually. Yeah.
But, yes, exactly. Other Lives, one of your selections. You got to see them play recently at the Jericho Tavern, and I've got some more questions for you from people listening in. Hello to Alex in Manchester, who says, Phil, is there any chance of the extra tracks from The Basement, the Daily Mail and Staircase having a studio recording in the future? Do you know what he's referring to?
I do, yeah. It's from The Basement, which unfortunately never got broadcast in the UK, which we were playing King of Limbs live on there, and we put 2 brand new songs in Daily Mail and Staircase, and we actually feel that those versions have pretty much got those songs. I don't think we're going to play them better.
Right.
As to what we do with them, that would have to be a meeting.
But there seems to be a certain fluidity to the way Radiohead are running things these days. So, I mean, you've just done a whole series of 12-inch remixes.
It's all smoke and mirrors, really, it is.
But, I mean, you've embraced that idea that, you'll put out, they seem like one-off releases or a series of releases that have now been collected together as the album. Yeah. But you could do that with a few, if you've got, like, definitive versions that have been performed that you think, actually, those are as good as we're going to get them, why not put them out as a 12-inch or something like that? I mean, would you consider doing that kind of thing?
I'll put it at the next meeting then, shall I?
Yeah, bring it
John
up.
Kennedy says.
Well, thanks to Alex in Manchester who was wondering. But it's interesting because obviously if you do feel you've got a definitive version or a definitive performance of something, then it might be worth preserving that, as it were, And
Absolutely. I think, the way that we can work now is kind of what we'd always aimed for. Just that you can, so with going back to In Rainbows, I mean, we finished that record about a fortnight, I think, before, actually completely finalised, before it was released digitally. And just that whole concept of being able to move that quickly on something. And, with the remix project as well, just being able to spread something out like that. That's just, such a flexible way of working. And it kind of responds to what's happening creatively, rather than having stuff that's there on the shelf waiting for months on end, so that the whole kind of like marketing machine can get in place behind it. Just actually having that kind of spontaneity, saying, we're going to release that. I mean, that's fantastic. That's kind of what you dream of when you start a band, really.
Yeah, to do it as and
living the
when.
dream.
Excellent. Radiohead living the dream. It's official. Phil says so. And the remixes wise, and obviously there's a double CD set of these remixes. Deanna, listening in Brazil, says that
Brazil?
Yeah, Brazil online, xfm.co.uk. Every single remix of King of Limbs is great.
I'd agree.
And positively impressed by how the remix album sounds different and interesting. I mean, do you look forward to hearing what people come back with remix-wise? And have remixes had an impact on the way Radiohead work at all?
On the first bit, yeah, there's a slight bitterness, just thinking, we should have thought of that in the first place, shouldn't we? And yes, they do have an influence. I mean, just thinking back to the particular mix, which is called the hexadecimal mix, of Planet Telex, which was on our second album, The Bends, and we heard that when that came back, it was just, that's really good, isn't it? And then that actually then influenced how we played the song live. So yeah, I mean, if they can, it's you know, it does feed back into at points into what we do.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. And going back to Deanna, she wants to know about Clive Deamer. I mean, you've mentioned him already. How is it for him to share the power of being the drummer with another guy? And how does it feel to play live with another drummer? I mean, at different points, other people in Radiohead have picked up percussive instruments to kind of join in. But it's quite different having another person, another body there with a full kit.
It's been fantastic. I mean, Clive has long been one of my favourite drummers, and so to actually get to work up close with him has been amazing. It's actually, from a playing point of view as well, you can actually just really lay back off it, and just because you know you both. It's a small. You can each put out a smaller dynamic, but you just get this real breadth and sound, and it's very exciting. Just having somebody to play off, to respond to in that way, and say he's an amazing drummer. Just sit there and get depressed at points, to be honest with you. How good he is.
You're pretty good yourself.
Oh, thank you.
Pat yourself on the back. You've brought in some tracks to play, and I've lined up Edwyn Collins. On your suggestion, but I'm a bit of a fan, and I really liked that the last album that he came out with. I thought it was fantastic, and I mean, were you you're of the era for Orange Juice?
Absolutely,
to have been an important group for you.
Yeah, I mean, I loved all those postcard bands, but Orange Juice in particular, and Edwyn Collins was still is a huge hero for me. I remember going in to have a haircut once when I had the facility to do that, and it was, I must have been about 15, and I went in with the cover for Rip It Up and said, I want to look like him.
Fantastic.
Unfortunately, never did, but there you go.
That's such a classic story. You brought the picture and said, I want a haircut like that. It's a kind of ongoing thing, isn't it? Because, I mean, obviously he sang about having a fringe like Roger McGuinn or whatever, and he was basing his hair inspiration from somebody else. And then the next generation took up that idea and took it forward. Excellent. And it's great that he's still making such amazing music and having an ongoing influence. I mean, it's interesting getting young bands on the show, and people who were born after Orange Juice had split up, and they're still citing them as a big inspiration. Yeah, absolutely. It's actually, in some ways, possibly that influence is kind of greater now than it was at the time. So, like all good music. Excellent. There's so much more good music on the way. Phil is going to stick around. He's going to perform some more songs for us. We've got more selections from TKOLRMX, but this is Edwyn Collins. You're listening to Xposure on XFM. I'm John Kennedy, and this is Radiohead, remixed by Lone. And I'm very pleased to say that I have 1/5 of Radiohead here tonight. Phil Selway is my live co-host. Phil, so Lone, you were hanging out in the club last night, just kind of chilling. Absolutely. How was it? It was very, very loud, very bass heavy, but it was a fantastic evening. So yeah, Lone was there doing a set. Had you met him before? No, I hadn't. No, I think my credentials are good now. I met him. What's he like? I don't know. He's a bit of a man of mystery as far as I'm concerned. It was a very brief conversation, so he's still mysterious to me. But his music is great. I mean, he's had a series of great singles. When you were putting this album together, or the series of 12 inches that you originally released, how did you go about choosing all these remixes? I mean, I've probably asked this question earlier, but I mean, Lone, was he? Did one of you put your hand up and say, "I think Lone should do one"? Is that how in the Radiohead meeting? Well, there was a suggestion of possible remixes that came to us from XL, and we threw our suggestions in there as well, and it was an amazing list. It's kind of spoiled for choice. I mean, absolutely. There are so many great producers and remixers that you could have made a quadruple album. Yeah,
Yeah, and who knows?
Yeah, it's an ongoing project. And just before that, you heard Francois and the Atlas Mountains with Piscine, this week's Exposure, big one. And you were liking the sound of that, Phil, I'm pleased to say.
That was amazing. It was particularly, you know, when it just opens out and it's just, that's lovely, just really wide sound. Gorgeous record.
Yeah, it sounds really, really good. I can't wait to hear the album. I've heard nothing but good things about this band. They've been the kind of band that whenever any good British band plays in France, Francois and the Atlas Mountains support them because they're one of the best bands in the country, allegedly. And I'm
taking note.
I had, yeah, exactly, when you go into France. I had a guest in last night, Liz Green, who lives in Manchester, but she attended the Anstruther Festival put together by King Creosote and that whole family of people. And Francois and the Atlas Mountains played there, and she was saying that it was really, really good. And Francois is quite a dude. He turned up and he had a gold lame hooded top on when he was performing.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever worn any gold lame?
Not in public.
So we're going to go back to some of your selections now, and this ties in with Anne Struther. King Creosote and John Hopkins, you've got a selection from the Diamond Mine album for us to hear. What do you like about King Creosote? Have you been following him for years? Is he somebody you've actually come across at all?
Well, I just love that whole thing that comes out of the Fence Collective. It's just, you know, it's that the DIY ethic that they had, and just producing, you know, artists like James Yorkston, and it's just, it's there's something very untainted about it all, and I think what he's done with John Hopkins here, who I also met last night,
in the coolest place, the boiler room.
I think it's fantastic.
Excellent. And here it is. It's John Hopkins with King Creosote. Bats in the Attic on Xposure XFM, as brought in tonight by Phil Selway. It is King Creosote and John Hopkins on Xposure XFM from the Mercury-nominated album Diamond Mine. That is Bats in the Attic. I should have given Phil Selway the chance to back announce that, seeing as Phil brought it in.
You're just all me.
I know. I've taken over. I'm really sorry about that. And have you met King Creosote? Have you?
I haven't. No.
I think a continuation of your remix project for Radiohead is to get a kind of folk remix version.
That's a great idea.
You know, forget the dance floor. That's for people who like to dance.
We've had the dub version of OK Computer.
Yeah.
Then King of Folk.
Yeah. Folk reinvention. Why not? I think it would be a good idea. But I guess, does folk have anything to do with your own music, do you think, Phil? I mean, you've released the solo album and the EP, and it's acoustic singer-songwriter type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that sets off the alarm bells, doesn't it?
Not necessarily.
There's a lot of folk that I love, you know.
Your mum, your dad, your
yeah, that's the one. I didn't really set out to make a folk record, though. I think that, you know, the moment that you'd have acoustic instruments in there, and it's kind of, you have a rather more hushed atmosphere to it. I think that's most people. That's the bracket. That's the little genre you get put in.
I know, it's a bit
old style record stores.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because in the last few years, there's been quite a resurgence in that kind of sound, and so many people have immediately said, "Oh, that's folk," and then you get the true folk traditional musicians putting their hands up and saying, "No, it's not. Absolutely. They have no grounding in this material whatsoever. They're charlatans."
Well, I think that's it as well, isn't it? There is such a tradition there that you look at somebody like Lau or a group like that who just really tap into that and then move it on. But they're very aware of the tradition there. For me, when I was working on this record, I mean, that really didn't figure for me. Yeah. It wasn't trying to tap into that. Although, as I say, there's so much of that I do love. But it felt quite separate to that for me.
Yeah. No, fair enough. But you're not only co-hosting the show tonight, you've also got your guitar, you're performing some songs, and, well, it seemed that this next song seemed like the most appropriate thing to play at this particular juncture because of its title, which is The Witching Hour, and The Witching Hour has just gone, and this was also on the debut album, Familial. What's the song about?
It's those moments in the middle of the night when you wake up in a cold sweat just thinking, I'm going to die one day. and all the kind of reassuring things that you think of to get yourself beyond those moments. Jolly little song.
Excellent. Excellent. So if you're ready, let's cheer us up then. This is Phil Selway performing live on Xposure XFM with The Witching Hour. Fantastic. It is Phil Selway with The Witching Hour, performed here in the studios of XFM. Phil is my co-host tonight. Phil, of course, part of Radiohead. And I think we should have another selection of yours, which maybe we should play this one now. You've got Dolly Parton.
You went for it.
Yeah, you've done a fantastic kind of compilation. It's brilliant. Kind of like a compilation album for me to play with.
It's just... it's the original and best version of I Will Always Love You, and I try and play this as much as possible to expunge the Whitney Houston version.
So people can respect the song and hear how amazing
absolutely,
it
because
is.
I didn't know this. I didn't know the original version, and I just had, the version from A Bodyguard imprinted on my brain. And when I heard the original, I just thought, that's such an amazing song. It's so beautiful. It's, the way she puts it across, it's heartbreaking. And so I think, just to reclaim the song, I think it's good to play this one from time to time.
Excellent. So here it is. So I think you should introduce it then, really, Phil. I don't want to hog the limelight.
So this is Dolly Parton, and with her original and best version of I Will Always Love You.
On Xposure XFM. You can
on Xposure XFM, of course.
Do not adjust your set. You are listening to XFM. It is Xposure, but that is Dolly Parton. I Will Always Love You, as brought in tonight by Phil Selway of Radiohead. And that does sound good. I mean, we must admit that while that was playing, we were sharing a lot of Dolly love.
We were. Lots of Dolly tales.
I confess that I have a Dolly Parton t-shirt. It's not an ironic t-shirt in any way. My friend Jim gave it to me because he knows I've got a deep-seated love of the woman. I mean, she's a pretty amazing woman. Not only she's an incredible songwriter, incredible performer, and incredible businesswoman, incredibly good-looking woman. I mean, I must admit that there was a concert on TV recently, and she does look about 35 or something, and she is kind of pushing 70 or so. So it's a credit to the plastic surgeons of America, and she would say so herself. In fact, she kind of does.
Yeah, what's her line? She says it takes a lot of money to look this cheap. Such a brilliant line.
Excellent. We're going to take a little break. We've got more Phil Selway selections on the way, plus the next of the session tracks from tonight's One Night Stand, Escapists. It is Escapists in session on Xposure XFM with Witching Hour. Who'd have thought we'd have had two songs in tonight's show called Witching Hour? I just couldn't have planned that, but sounding great. And there are more session tracks still to come from Escapists, and it's at this point that I'm realising that I'm kind of running out of time almost. I've got to get in an Antlered Man session track now before we return to Phil. And hello to Matthew in Barnes. John, Dolly Parton, born 1946. So she's way beyond 70, isn't she? What does that make her? I'll do the maths while I play the next of the session tracks from Antlered Man. Antlered Man, this week's artist in residence. And this is a repeat airing of the session that they recorded back in June. They have a mini album out this week on Goo Girl Records, and it does feature this song. This is Antlered Man in session on Xposure XFM with Outrages 2 and 3. Sounding fantastic. Antlered Man with Outrages 1 to 3. Good to get the title right. And you'll find another version of that on the album Gifts Part 1 out this week through Goo Girl Records. And there'll be another session track from Antlered Man on tomorrow night's show. I'll try and get it in earlier. It seems to be getting later and later for them, unfortunately, this week. And also on tomorrow night's show, I'll have Nedry doing a one-night stand, which I'm looking forward to. And Tim Noakes of Dazed and Confused, my regular correspondent of Cool, will be returning to the program programme for the last time. It's such a shame, but all good things have to come to an end, I guess. But Tim on tomorrow night's show for the last time, and I'm sure he'll be bringing some amazing selections as ever. And following up to Matthew Barnes telling us that Dolly Parton, born in 1946, we have Diana tweeting saying, Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You on XFM. Who would expect that? Absolutely beautiful. The first and the best by far. And how old does that make Dolly if she was born in 46? Is that 65, something like that? That's pushing 70, isn't it? And hello to Cecile getting in touch with a gig review. Cloud Control at Scala was phenomenal tonight. After show spent dancing to 80s girls bands. Heaven, says Cecile. Excellent. And she's hoping to catch up with the Björk interview. If you're missing a thing, you can always listen again. xfm.co.uk. Listen again. We've got an amazing radio player. Listen again at your leisure for the next 7 days. And I would suspect that you'd want to listen to this show again. Phil Selway from Radiohead is my co-host. I've kind of put him on the back burner. I wanted to get those session tracks out for you, and he'll be back with another selection from the compilation he's put together especially for this show. We've got Reckless Eric, no less, next. It is Reckless Eric on Xposure XFM. It is a Phil Selway selection, whole wide world. Sounding great, I must admit. I love that cheer near the end.
Absolutely, it's got some great lyrics in it as well.
An intriguing character, Reckless Eric. When did you come across him? How did you fall into liking him?
That's just one of those songs. It was around as a teenager, really. It was probably my sister's playing it, and it's just got lodged in my brain from there. It's just one of those records. It's just so uplifting, that record. I love it. As I say, the lyrics in it are just some of them are just genius, really.
He's still around, isn't he? I think.
I don't know.
I think he is. As I'll say it, I think he's still around. I'm pretty sure he's still around, and occasionally surfaces again and performs and stuff like that.
Right.
And it's still been releasing records, I'm sure. If anybody knows better, do get in touch. John.Kennedy@xfm.co.uk, 83936 on the text, or you can tweet at XFM. Are you into Twitter? Is tweeting anything that you're into, Phil?
Not Twitter. I do stuff on Facebook, which I think then just gets put that way, but I don't have that interesting a life, really. So.
No, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will beg to differ. I mean, you're in Radiohead, one of the best bands in the world, and I'd have thought you must get quite a few people saying, hang on a minute, your life's amazing.
It's very nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, but, apart from last night, of course, which...
Yeah, when you're out clubbing till the early hours.
I should have been tweeting all my name drops.
Yeah, you should. Just met John Hopkins. Just met Lone. Yeah, just met Caribou. He's cool. Excellent. So I'm taking it that clubbing isn't part of the Phil Selway normal activity. No.
No, not especially, I'm afraid.
What about when you're on tour? When Radiohead hit the different parts of the world? Is it quick cup of cocoa and an early...
Oh, no, that's party night every night,
right?
Yeah, of course, as you'd expect.
Yeah, you've got a reputation to keep up.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So amongst the different selections, I think we should have something a bit more recent. Now, maybe it would be nice to hear Silver Columns, because... you mentioned that in your live band that Ardem, who is one half of Silver Columns, is part of your live band.
That's right, yeah. And so this is what he did with the record that he released last year with Johnny Lynch, and a.k.a. The Pictish Trail, another Fence Collective person. And they just went out with this kind of electro-pop album last year, and just fantastic. And Ardem is just incredible, great musician, just such a good take on music, and he just covers so many different types of music, just brings absolute kind of passion and commitment to what he does. So yes, makes me smile when I hear him.
Yeah, no, he's amazing. I mean, so he works in classical, he works in rock, he works in folk. I'm sure he's got a jazz band on the go. He must have a jazz band on the go. He's got electropop.
Yeah, I reckon so. He keeps it very much under wraps, so it must be under a different moniker or something, but it must be there.
Yeah, he's got to be doing some jazz on the side, I'm sure. But this is him as one half of Silver Columns. It is Xposure on XFM with Radiohead, another selection from the TKOL RMX album out this week. Phil Selway co-hosting Xposure tonight, and that is the Jamie XX rework of Bloom, sounding pretty mellow until that last kind of spurge, if that's a word, of noise at the end. A versatile man, that Jamie XX. And in terms of, and just before that, we had a selection from Phil, Silver Columns, Browbeaten, one half of Silver Columns, features in Phil's live band, Ardem. And what does he play for you in the band?
Mainly bass, but pretty much anything that will come his way, really.
And is it a big setup with the band? I mean, have you kept it?
It's 5 of us.
5, right.
So it's, the other musicians are a drummer called Alex Thomas, and then Kath Mann and Caroline Weeks, and I met those 3 when Bat for Lashes were playing with Radiohead, and I met them through that.
Oh, that's quite nice. So you've made friends and said, hey, no, I've got some of my own material. I mean, was it when you phoned them up to get them involved, or were they already aware that you'd been writing songs and performing songs?
Well, by that point, I'd actually released the record. So it's a different... The musicians I play live with are different from the ones that are on the record.
Yeah.
But yes, I think people have been, if they haven't heard the record, they've been a little bit surprised that I've actually made something in my own right, but they reacted favourably.
No, that's good. Obviously, it's good. But I just wondered whether, when you're on tour with them, you mentioned, I've got this other stuff, maybe we...
I did actually, very at that point, when we were playing with them, it's, I hadn't made the record, and actually it's the demos of stuff that I think I played to Caroline at the time, Caroline Weeks. And yes, I think that was a big surprise to people at that point that actually I was doing my own material, and kind of stood up in its own right. So
yeah. No, it sounds great. So, but in terms of the gigging, do you try and limit it in terms of for your own solo stuff? Just to because obviously with Radiohead, you do some big tours, and you've been doing that for a long time now, and so it's like a busman's holiday in a way to go and do more touring, possibly.
In a way, I mean, there's I don't do a huge amount of touring of my own stuff. I've done a huge amount of touring of Radiohead stuff either recently. But it's when I released the record last August, we did about a month and a half's worth then, and yes, it was all my material that we played in there, and it was great. I mean, it's the only way that you can actually really get a grasp on it and really learn. I mean, for me, it's a completely different stagecraft, if you like, coming up to the front of the stage. And the only way you can learn that is by going out and doing that, really.
Yeah.
So, unlike the record, where you can hide away, go under the radar, and actually wait till you're actually happy with something, you just got to go out and just say, this is what I do. Yeah.
And how was that? I mean, was it a surprise? Do you have greater admiration for Tom now that you've done that? Or
I've always had huge admiration for Tom, John.
Of course you have. Excellent.
It was. It certainly. I mean, even on the scale that I've been doing it, it's. There's a lot to take on board whilst you're doing it, and yeah, I mean, I look at what Tom can do on a much larger stage and kind of platform, and it's amazing what he does. And to actually, I think, watching Tom when he just loses himself in the music, and to be able to do that in that context, I think it's immense, really.
Yeah, definitely. But you haven't got the band tonight, but you do have your guitar. So I think maybe we should hear another song before you run off into the night. And the next song you're going to perform, I think, is by Some Miracle. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. It was the first track on Familial.
the album, which is out now through Bella Union, still available. Interesting cover, I thought. A kind of nuclear family, but kind of, well, mutated, or what they got on their faces?
Mutated into woodland creatures.
They all look like that round your way.
Absolutely, I'm a hick from the sticks, so yeah.
Excellent. But here is Phil Selway now, performing for Exposure on XFM with By Some Miracle. It is Phil Selway performing on Exposure XFM with By Some Miracle. You can get the full band version on the album Familial. I think I should let you go, Phil, and let you disappear off into the night. But before that, we should have another selection of yours from this amazing compilation tape. I see that how I slip back into that old language of yesteryear. That's kind of sad.
It's for revival, isn't it?
Cassettes are apparently, there's a lot of new things coming out on cassette.
Oh, yeah, so I've heard.
Yeah, I don't really approve myself.
They still sound bad, though, don't they?
They sound rubbish. What should we go for? What do you want to play? How about John Martin? Go Down Easy. I think that might be a nice selection this time of night. Yeah,
definitely for this time of night.
John's interesting in the sense that he, I think, is somebody who you could say set out a blueprint for what Radiohead do. In that he was very forward-thinking, very experimental, really kind of tried to rearrange songwriting in a way. Somebody who came from a kind of folk tradition to an extent, but embraced technology as it developed, and tried to kind of take it into new worlds.
John Martin and Radiohead in the same breath there. You've made my evening.
You've made my evening for coming in, Phil, and bringing the guitar and these fine selections. Thanks again. And what do you think? A future in radio broadcasting? Do you want to come back and do it again another time?
Come back and play some more Dolly Parton.
Yeah, why not? It's a great idea. Excellent. And, well, I think you should do the final introduction then for introducing John Martin. You brought him in after all.
Yeah. So this is John Martin. It's off Solidaire. It's called Go Down Easy. And it's got the most amazing introduction from Danny Thompson on bass.